Staying with that story, students are expected to brave the rain to come out in support of Mthokozisi Ntumba's family. Let's go live now to eNCA reporter Silindelo Masikane, who is outside following that story. Slee, earlier when we spoke, it was only a few of the students who had gathered. I see you're outside the Magistrate's court. How's it looking? It looks like there's still no students.
Well, at this point, we do see a lot more students that have gathered outside the Johannesburg Magistrate's Court. We were expecting a march to take place from Braamfontein to the courthouse, but unfortunately for the students, I think the weather just worked to their disadvantage in that they just weren't able to gather enough numbers to start a march. But outside the Magistrate's Court, we are seeing that law enforcement has beefed up security. Much earlier on, we saw about 10 law enforcement vehicles. In fact, there were 2 nyalas. It's gone down to 1 now. The water cannon is situated outside the courthouse, and we also understand that public order policing is also in the vicinity. What's happening inside, however, is I understand that the docket is still yet to arrive. There are media personnel that have also asked for permission to be able to broadcast proceedings. That is all still underway, but I just want to ask Tebogo to walk with me so we can show you the group of students that has gathered out here, many of them belonging to SASCO, and they are joined by the Wits SRC leadership. I am actually joined by Mthokozisi now, who's the Wits SRC president, and I know earlier on you were actually presenting a presentation to the Portfolio Committee of Higher Education. Just tell us about how that went. And of course, we are seeing the small numbers, but of course you remain out here, you remain here to support the Ntumba family.
It is correct. We were presenting before the Portfolio Committee of Parliament this morning, and our submissions largely related to first, free education. That's the primary goal we want. But in the interim, we want intervention strategies that are not only going to speak to Wits University, but to every university in the country. And this will try and ensure that access is liberated or opened up for every student who deserves to be in university in the 2021 academic year. It's our position as Wits University that in recent history, 2020 has been the hardest academic year. And if students are not given the opportunity to study going forward because of what happened last year, then really we are putting ourselves in a position we don't want to be in as a country.
The numbers today are a bit small, but you still managed to come out. So why was it important for these students as well as the SRC to come to court?
So the numbers are not small. If you are to go to Braamfontein now, in Braamfontein there's a concert we're planning to have. Artists from the black community in particular, Ipo Polgabiko, in Sigimazwai and others, have decided, look, we're going to commemorate and formally rename DPS Street into Mthokozisi Ntumba Street. And then a portion of us decided to come to court to ensure that justice is done and not seen to be done. So the number had to split. It's not necessarily small. And most of the members that are here are SRC members. So we did present before the Portfolio Committee that we want a joint sitting between the Portfolio Committee of SAPS and DHEAD to ensure that justice is found for Mthokozisi Ntumba. And then more than anything, how protest is dealt with in this country, in particular as it relates to students, it needs to be bettered. Right? We've called on government to say going forward, we don't want rubber bullets and guns to be used on students. We've seen the deadliness of rubber bullets and guns. We've seen what they did to Andre Statani. We've seen what they did in Marikana. We are seeing today what they've done to Mthokozisi Ntumba. We can't lose more lives at the height of protest.
And how did your meeting go with the Vice Chancellor yesterday? I understand you were meeting with the Vice Chancellor. How did that turn out?
So we were met with sheer arrogance, and this was expressed today before the Portfolio Committee in Parliament, and he was unable to also answer the questions before Parliament today. So we ended up saying, look, we still want, from the SRC side, we want for dialogue to continue. We want to engage, we want to compensate. Right? We want to find each other. We must meet a point of convergence at some point. But for that to happen, we can no longer have a member of the senior executive team proceeding or presiding over our conversation. We must get an external mediator. So we've since taken it upon ourselves to get an external mediator of our own from the SRC, and they will also be getting an external mediator. So we'll have 2 external mediators that will facilitate conversation between the SRC and the Wits University senior executive team.
Are you and the Wits management not finding each other on any of the demands that you put on the table?
So there's no single demand that they've agreed to as it stands now. Hence, you see students still up in arms and protesting. Right? We will continue to protest. As I speak to you now, I have first years who are unable to register. I have first years who are unable to proceed with their academic calendar. I have first years who are on campus and without accommodation. I have first years who don't have food. I have first years who can't use laptops. I have first years who are being set up for failure in this country. Right? And if I don't address that with the rigor it deserves, then I'm setting up those first years for failure. But at this point, it's no longer about them. At this point, it's about the family in Rwanda. It's about the family in Soweto. It's about the family in KZN. It's about the family in Mthokozisi. And if we don't address it, we don't address this matter with the rigor it deserves, then we'll be failing an entire generation. Each generation must discover its mission, and our mission has discovered itself. The only thing we need to do now is define our own era. And I call upon young people from all political lines to come together and define their own era. Because if they don't do this, history will judge us harshly.
You were seeing a lot of political divisions last week. Are we seeing the same this week as well?
Yeah, you saw that, a lot of that last week, but you've seen a lot of unity this week. You've seen not only unity among political formations, but you've also seen unity among universities and institutions and amongst themselves. You've seen Central Johannesburg College coming to us. We've seen us going to UJ. We've seen us coming together, going to Rosebank College, because this is an issue that not only affects Central Johannesburg College or UJ or Wits. It's an issue that affects every student in the country.
Lastly, I know I'm running out of time, Masuko, but I just want to bring in the ANC Youth League. It's your government, it's your ANC-led government that seems to continue to fail students. What is your message, Luyolo, as the ANC Youth League?
No, look, as the ANC Youth League, we deployed the SRC, and the SRC is taking our mandate as the ANC Youth League to do everything to fight for students who've been financially excluded at Wits. So the fact that we are ANC Youth League and we are members of the ANC does not necessarily mean we must agree with everything that the leadership does in government. So us being on the streets shows that we disagree with what they've done, and we want free education now.
All right, I just want to leave you with the visuals that we're seeing right now, Maseko. As you can hear from students, that protests will continue. The Wits SRC is saying that they cannot find a consensus with management and are looking for an external mediator in terms of their demands.